Greetings and welcome to another episode of Super Speak Sundays. I'm your host, James the Orator. And as you know, this platform has been set up for ordinary people who are doing some extraordinary things. We're excited about the opportunity to serve you and to provide a space where you can learn and grow and learn. We are just so thankful for your support and participation, the comments, the texts. Again, I know I say this on every episode, but we are so happy to have an audience like you, and continue to spread the word and let your network, let them know what we're doing. Again, we like for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also share our videos and make comments. We want to hear some things that might be interesting you, other guests that you would like to see. Our guest today, wow. Let me take you back. If you saw the video with Crux Conception, he talked about his own mental health issues and things that he had to go through. And if you haven't watched that episode, please make sure you do. But on the other side of someone who is experiencing mental health challenges, we also have someone who's on the other side of the spectrum. Someone who, again, is I've seen this young man grow from just being a person who's working with young people to reaching the pinnacle of his profession. And we're going to introduce him without further ado. John Lewis Jr., he's an MSW and he's a licensed social worker. John Lewis Jr. is a licensed social worker who has over 10 years of experience as a professional in the mental health field. He has worked with children, adolescents, adults, and families. As a therapist, John's primary focus is to provide a therapeutic space for individuals and families who wish to address depression, anxiety, anger, and other emotional needs. Although it can be difficult to walk down this road, he believes that accepting help along the way should not be a sign of weakness, but rather a step towards a greater you. John is driven to work alongside his clients to reach their full potential. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our therapist for today, John Lewis Jr. John, how you doing?
I'm all right, James. How are you?
Good. Hey, thank you for joining us today on Super Speak Sundays. I was really excited to get you on today. I just know you have a wealth of knowledge and you've helped many people through your therapeutic practice.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, man. I see what you're doing here, and I'm very excited about it. It's necessary. It's important to have these type of platforms, man. So congratulations on this
Thank
platform.
you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. As we do historically, we always start off with a quote. We give our guests a quote, and we want them to just give their initial reaction to the quote and just some background on your feelings towards this quote. So your quote is, I'm going to read it and then we'll let you respond. But the quote says, "Courage doesn't happen when you have all the answers. It happens when you are ready to face the questions you have been avoiding your whole life." And that's Shannon L. Alder. What are your thoughts about that, John?
My thoughts on that. Wow. I mean, that's a very strong statement, a very strong quote, and it's about we talked earlier about stepping out of your comfort zone.
Mhm.
As long as you're in that comfort zone, there's no real need to stretch yourself or show courage or show your strength. That kind of comes easily. But what are you going to do in the times that are challenging to you? The times that you don't have everything at your disposal to work through things. How are you going to get through that? What are you going to reach to? What type of experiences and people do you have around you?
Wow.
And that shows courage when you can reach out and put people around you, and dig in when things aren't going so well. That's where the courage shines. So I like that.
Wow. You said something, and I think this has kind of been a current, reoccurring theme. I can't talk today. A reoccurring theme that many of our guests have talked about is being able to surround yourself around the right people. How important is it to surround yourself around the right people as you are going through these traumatic experiences?
It's very important. I mean, it's, everything that we think, we become. So it's one thing to want to be something and talk about being something, and
Mhm.
we do we do that a lot,
Yes.
and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that that's one thing, but it's another thing to actually make those things happen. And when you have people around you who are going in that same direction that you wish to go in, then you're getting fed. You're getting fed some wisdom, some jewels.
Mhm.
You're able to share the same energy as those people who are trying to move forward. So if that's your goal to move forward, then it makes more sense to surround yourself with people like that.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
it's really, we have to recognize the influence um, that people have on us and how that might change the way we think. So surround yourself with good people,
Yeah.
people that are going in the direction you're going in, and I
Right.
guarantee you'll see a difference.
John, talk a little bit about your experience. I guess more so your childhood. I mean, did you grow up wanting to be a therapist?
I did not.
Okay,
Uh,
talk about that.
so I grew up. Well, if I want to talk about real focus, because growing up when you're little, your mom and dad always said, "Go be a doctor, go be a
Yeah. Oh yeah.
lawyer."
Oh yeah.
So when I was young, those were the dreams. But by high school, my dream was to become an engineer.
Okay.
Um, I've always liked taking things apart, putting them back together, figuring out how they work, and things like that. So, um, I'm a dreamer.
Hmm.
So even along the way, after figuring out that I wanted to be an engineer, there were other things that came along. Being a businessman was another one of those things.
Right.
So when I went into college, I went in thinking I was going to be a business major. After that first semester, I had a business class and I had a psychology class,
Right.
and I did way better in the psychology class than I
Okay.
did in that
Okay.
business class.
Okay.
So it became pretty clear, like, that it was coming too easy to me. The psychology
Right.
stuff coming very easy. It made sense, and then when I started to look back, I realized that I had done that type of thing basically my whole life. I was kind of
Right.
that person who, um, people look to for comfort,
Okay.
emotional support, sharing some wisdom and guidance and things like that. So it,
Wow.
it just kind of made sense that I'll go into that field instead.
Right. One of the things you talked about was wanting to be an entrepreneur. I mean, an entrepreneur also, but an engineer. And when you think about engineering, you talked about taking things apart and putting them back together. Talk about the parallel between engineering, where people may be broken apart, and then it's
Mhm.
your job to help to put them back together. Talk about the parallel between those two.
Absolutely. I like that. I like that. It really is about the same. When someone comes in, um, one of the things we do is assess the situation to see what might be a little off, or broken, what happened along the way to make this person kind of experience these negative emotions.
Hmm.
And so um, you go back to that space and that time, and then you kind of trace back to present to
Right.
see, what were the events, how did it happen, and how can we mend or repair some of these things that happened to that person. um, I say the difference is, in engineering, if someone brings me a computer or a machine that's broken, it's up to me to fix it.
All right.
In therapy, it's a team effort. My clients and myself, I tell them all the time, this is their journey, and I'm just along the ride on their journey, hoping to provide some guidance for them along the way. maybe some education, but I can't fix my clients. So that therein lies the challenge
Hmm.
for a therapist. And most of us come into this field wanting to fix
Right.
everything, wanting to save the world. But you quickly realize that that's not possible, and nor is it the best route to take. So that I'd say that's the big difference. Is it's got to be a team effort. We have to partner up through that journey while they're looking to recover from what they were suffering from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that when we hear the word therapist, we think that this person's going to fix me. Why is this misconception there? Why do you where does that misconception come from?
Well, I think that it's as a society we're not really that versed on what mental health is.
Hmm.
I mean, we there's a huge stigma around mental health.
Hmm.
So, if we compare it to a medical doctor, um, everybody's familiar with medical doctors, medical assistants.
Right.
If you break your arm, you know exactly where to go. They're going to do that X-ray and see what the problem is. They're going to let you know what you have to do to heal it. And when you look at therapy, part of that is the same process.
Hmm.
We're going to look at it. We're going to X-ray it. We're going to examine what exactly is broken, like we were just talking about.
Hmm.
Um, but also, it's going to be up to the client to take that advice or to take that guidance and do what they have to do. I think that we compare, when you compare those two, I think people are so used to being able to go to a professional and
Right.
get things fixed,
Right.
also with car repairs or anything really, when you think about it, you're able to take what's broken to the professional and they're supposed to fix it. So I think that's kind of the misconception. We just haven't been educated enough yet. Psychology and therapy is still fairly new, relatively
Right.
speaking. So
Okay.
yeah, I think we're learning a lot still.
Good. I think that there's a strong stigma in the African American community when it comes to therapy. You heard people say, "Well, hey, if I go to a therapist, I'm not crazy. I don't need to go see a therapist." But how can we start to dispel those myths about what therapy really is and the impact that it can have on someone's life?
I think there's a few things that can help.
Mhm.
One thing I see is that people who have that experience, who have been to therapy, and it's a sensitive subject. It can
Sure,
be
it is.
kind of touchy sometimes, and you don't have to share every single detail of what you went through, but sharing with others that, hey, I've been to a therapist too, and I needed some help, I needed some
Mhm.
assistance. I think when people can hear the people around them sharing that type of story,
Right.
and they see that, they're just like me, and they went to go get some help, so maybe
Exactly.
it's not so far fetched. Um, I think that's one of the things. I think we have a couple of uh, generational myths to dispel.
Okay. Okay.
You know, African Americans historically haven't, we haven't trusted the health community, period. We were talking about
Mhm.
the medical field,
Right.
mental health. Um, it's hard for us to put our trust in those systems,
Sure.
and rightfully so. So, you take someone who has heard from their family, time and time again, that, they're not going to go talk to a therapist because they don't want to put all their business out on the street.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
you don't tell the family business. You just don't go, putting your garbage out like that.
Right.
Um, so the more we're exposed to that, I think the less we realize how valuable it can be. So I think turning it around and hearing the other side of the experience uh, will help kind of dispel that myth, and just learning and understanding that it may seem really weird what you're going through
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
unique, or like something's wrong with you, but there are plenty of other people
Yes,
who
yes,
have felt the same way and gone through some of the same things that you're feeling. So just understanding you're not by yourself. You're not
right.
alone. And I think that would help kind of soften the blow as well.
Let me ask you a question: fact or fiction? I've read this somewhere, and I can't remember where, but I just want to get your opinion. People who are depressed are concerned about the past, and people who are experience anxiety are concerned about the future. What do you say?
That's absolutely true.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
absolutely true. It's I mean, it's not a hard science, but depression happens when we hold on to something that happened to us in the past.
Mm. Okay.
When you think about it, it's it's thinking about an event that happened,
Now,
and
is it one event or many events?
it could be many events.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be many events, and it's something that affected us in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it has, reshaped how we view the world, and how we respond to things.
Okay.
When we with depression, you become a little hopeless, um, based on those things that you went through,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how traumatic they were. So when you're going through those things over and over and over again in your head, that's depression. Now, anxiety, on the other hand,
Now,
it
before you go into anxiety, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no,
before you
no,
go
go
into anxiety, I want to kind of talk about this thing called adverse childhood experiences. And
ahead.
so when we talk about the ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, these these episodes in our lives the research says if you experience four or more, then it lowers your ability to be resilient. Resilient meaning that you're able to fight through difficult situations and still be able to come on top. How impactful are uh, I guess ACEs that people go through? ACEs meaning physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, all these abuses that people go through. Witnessing a parent going to you know you know incarceration. When you experience those things. So again, four or more, they're saying that you know your level of resilience is very low.
Yeah, and these are things that, day by day we don't really see as a big deal, especially if you've been through so many of those for so long.
Hmm.
Seems like it's not a big deal, but I would encourage everyone, anyone that's listening, to go take the ACE, adverse childhood experiences, like you said,
Hmm.
and you might be surprised at what your score is because,
Hmm.
like you said, experiencing abuse, experiencing it yourself, or even being a witness of it,
Right.
um, having someone close to you that's addicted to drugs or alcohol,
Yeah.
and are making bad decisions based on that.
Hmm.
Um, those type of things affect us as well. And all of these things, when they happen, they affect our worldview. And when our worldview is affected, then we start reshaping ourselves to deal with the worldview. Because most of us are surviving.
Hmm.
Like, what we do is what we're doing to survive. We're doing the best we can to go from one day to the next.
Right.
And so when the past is pretty messy for you, then you shape yourself based on that. Then that really, you can see where that can uh, affect someone's upbringing,
Right.
affect how they come out as an adult.
Wow, that's heavy, man. That's heavy to really give people that type of perspective. As you when you again, I just that was just something I read, but when you took it a little bit deeper
Mhm.
to say it could be one event or it could be many events that impacts a person to shape their lives to be, to shape based on what's happened to them. Wow, wow. What about anxiety?
Anxiety, when you think about anxiety, one of the biggest symptoms of anxiety is excessive worry.
Okay.
Um, when you're worrying about something, you're worrying about what can happen or what might happen or what will happen.
Hmm.
Um, when you're thinking about, someone who has social anxiety, um, and they are going somewhere where there's a big crowd,
Hmm.
they're thinking about what's going to happen when I'm mixed up in that big crowd.
Right.
Who's going to see me? What are they going to say to me? What am I supposed to say? Do I look okay?
Right.
Should I have done this or that differently? And those are the things that cause them to avoid that certain event.
Wow.
So when you're dealing with anxiety, it's about what's going to happen next. So we talk about shaping again your thought process,
Right.
um, so that you go into those situations with more confidence and less worry.
Would you so think about the current state of America. We're
Mm,
seeing just an overabundance of our black men who are being incarcerated, um, being gunned down by one another, and it happens in other communities as well. But unfortunately, we're highlighted on the news. And so don't believe the hype, if
yeah,
you're thinking that, black folks are only people who, commit murder,
right.
against their own. But my point is, I wanted to ask you, when we think about what our young black men are going through, we talk about George Floyd, when we talk about how the pandemic has impacted, people's families and their lives. It seems like young folks have really been impacted because they haven't been able to connect at school and things of that nature. What number one, have you dealt with young people who have experienced these types of episodes, and what would you recommend that a parent do if their child is experiencing any type of anxiety or depression regarding our current events?
Yeah, I completely agree. The things we've seen in the past few years are unprecedented. I never thought I would see these things happen, especially at one time in my lifetime. So these are definitely some events that are affecting all of us. And like you talk about with young people, I do have a few clients, and one of the first things they talk about when I ask them to tell me about why we're here today, they go back to school and they say,
Wow. Wow.
last year or the year before, we stopped going, then we were
Right.
at home. Huge impact,
Sure.
huge
Sure.
impact. Kids are in school for the majority of the day. And so when you just uproot them, pull them right out of that habit that they're used to, that routine that they're used to, that can be sort of traumatic for a child when you pull them out of a routine like that. And also when you talk about the racial injustice that
Hmm.
we've seen or that have been highlighted the past few years, talk about anxiety. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
when those things, we see these videos over and over, we hear
Right.
these news stories. With social media, we see commentary all the time on
Mm.
what happened, what should have happened. Um, that seeps in,
Yes, it does.
that seeps in. And so there's no wonder why a young black man would be afraid just driving down the street.
Absolutely.
That's a to me, it's a perpetual state of anxiety for young black men just to drive down the street,
Mm.
to have to watch your back and look out. And if a police officer comes up, your thoughts may be a little bit different than people who are non-black. And there's that fear there. So
Right.
it's a huge impact, a negative impact. In order to get through it, what I encourage parents to do is just talk to their kids about all of these things. Open
Right.
up that conversation, open up that dialogue, um, and talk through. Hear their feelings, hear their thoughts, validate their thoughts,
Right.
because their thoughts and their feelings are real. And
Mm.
that's the first and biggest step that we as parents can do. If we don't talk about these things, then it becomes alien. to them, and
Right.
it teaches the kids not to talk about it and try not to think about it as well. But if we can process these things and talk about them in the home, then that teaches young people how to uh, process that mental that their own mental health, and
Hmm.
handle their own mental health. Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. Jawanzu Kunjufu, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he talks about the fourth grade syndrome. And so, of course, we're seeing our young boys at an earlier age get involved and having to make decisions that are way before the time, in my opinion, but that's where we are today. If there's a parent right now who's experiencing a child who's trying to determine if he's going to go down road A or road B, what type of things can we do to shape that child? Of course, we know mentorship and things like that are very, very important, but in terms from a therapeutic standpoint, what recommendations do you have for those parents?
Uh, I think that rides on the tail of what we were just talking about. Parents talking to their children, not
Mhm.
being afraid to have those hard conversations. Have those conversations about drugs, using drugs, dealing drugs, guns, violence. Understand and recognize the influence that they have around them through media,
Right.
video games, music, movies, TV, and even helping them process those things that they see, helping them see and realize, what's real and what's not real. You
Right.
see these things on TV or you hear about them in songs, but you know, a lot of these things aren't necessarily true.
Right.
And just kind of helping them realize that is the key. Um, Showing support if they're going through something,
Hmm.
noticing things that have changed. When you have a teenager, of course, they go through plenty of changes in those years, but
Right.
the changes that kind of concern you, they're a little more quiet now. They shut
Hmm.
themselves off. They're dressing differently. The people they hang around are different, and you
Right.
may sense a negative influence from the people that they're hanging around. Not
Wow.
being afraid to have those hard conversations. It's
Right.
not
Right.
easy at all, but that's going to be key. Communication, talking through those things, and helping them understand what the world really is about. And again, it's shaping that worldview
Right.
um, to help them create their own lane.
Wow, that's I think you're giving us some jewels, man. Today, it's very, very important to be able to open up those lines of communication. As
Yeah,
a parent, I can't always say that I've always been the best communicator, but it's something. It's a journey, and again, that's why we do this show. Is because we want to show people that the folks on the show, nobody's perfect.
nobody.
Everybody has shortcomings, and we're all striving to be our very best. I wanted to kind of transition. We know that many of our young people are into video games now, and you mentioned that music and TV and all the media, the social media. What impact do you feel this has had on our children from a therapeutic or a psychiatric standpoint?
Well, Dr. Dix is funny. I was just talking to one of my young clients the other day about this,
Hmm.
and I'm going to say what I told him, which is I really hate to admit it,
Hmm. Say it.
but
Say it.
the influence that rap music has on us and video games have on us, especially when our minds are impressionable. And I
Sure.
hate to admit it because, growing up 80s and 90s, when hip hop and rap was just starting to bubble, and the
Hmm.
90s was when it got a little grimy and got a little violent.
Right.
I was the one arguing the other side.
Mm.
No, people aren't doing something just because a rap song is out.
Right.
But it goes back to what we were talking about, surrounding yourself with the right people. It's the same thing. What are we going to allow to seep into our brain and
Right.
influence us, influence our decisions and our worldview? Um, and so when you're looking at and engaging in things that are violent, uh, you know, the majority of the day, then that those things are going to seep through. Um, you couple that with events that are going on today, like you said, the real violence that's going on in the streets,
Right.
the racial injustice and the killing of young black folks by the police.
Right.
They're seeing that, and they're able to make those connections, and it's so now
Mhm.
it's easier to believe that that's real life.
That's
That's
right.
what's going on out there, and that's what should be going on. And we don't necessarily have to accept that narrative. Um, but as I'm older, I do realize the impact that all of that has on our mind, and it's very important for us to find a way to feed more positivity into our brain, whether that's through reading, again, the same media outlets, you
Hmm.
know, movies, TV, music. There's positive things out there,
Right.
so I believe um, that's a big habit that we should pick up is feeding ourselves with positivity as much as we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last point.
All right.
We all grow up, particularly men. We're taught to be strong. We're taught to be warriors, not to show emotion, not to show feeling, just to be strong for everyone else. But oftentimes we have nowhere to go when we need to be strong, or we need a shoulder to lean on. What percentage of your population are men, and what word do you have for men who may be struggling with, wanting to keep this, this aura of I'm strong, I'm tough, but really inside they need help?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say that 80 to 90% of my clients are males. Um, and the females that I do have, the women that I do have as clients, um, are usually part of a couple when we're doing couples therapy.
Hmm.
So I think that just goes to show the importance of representation of men in this
That's
field.
it. That's it.
I think that breaks down a barrier in and of itself. When people are looking for treatment and they look up and they see a man and they understand that that connection is going to be there, that they're going to be looking at someone who understands
Hmm.
what they are going through, understand what they may have been through, understand their perspective. That's going to ease that nervousness on, okay, should I take this step or not? Um, so, my message to men would be to again kind of start to push back and question, um, those narratives that have been pushed on us our whole life.
That's it.
You
That's it.
mentioned it. We're supposed to be strong. We're not supposed to cry. We're not supposed to even express our emotions.
Right.
Um, but it's unfathomable to think. We're emotional beings. We're humans.
Right.
We're built to feel emotions. How do we think that someone's supposed to make it without expressing them and without dealing with them?
Wow.
Uh, and I like, you mentioned the word resilience. Um, resiliency is a very positive trait to have, and it really can help you along the way.
Right.
I think sometimes it gets a little muddy when we think about that word. We could put that tag on somebody and say he's very resilient. He's been through so much. Look
Right.
at what he's been through. He made it through it. He's resilient. Sometimes that term can be a little dismissive, though, uh,
Hmm.
and that pertains to not just men, but to other groups, women, to people of color,
Right.
people under the poverty line. When we start talking about how resilient those groups are, it allows some people to kind of dismiss that group as
Wow.
well. Because we think,
Wow.
okay, that they're
Oh yeah.
resilient. So how much do I really have to do for them? They're strong. They'll get through it.
Hmm.
Uh, But yeah, so I think that that bears a little, a little more attention to look
Right.
at ideas like that, like how we're supposed to handle things, and who decides that? Who decides what we're supposed to handle? How
Right.
much of it we're supposed to handle? Um, we have to be able to take back control of our own lives and realize that there are avenues to take that go against some of the things that we've been taught
Wow. Wow.
while we were being brought up. So
Wow. Brother Lewis, I'm full over here. I mean, I definitely appreciate you visiting with us today, Super Speak Sundays. How can people get in touch with you? We have
uh,
your number. We have your number here on the tickler. So he,
yeah,
uh, Mr. Lewis is in Indianapolis, Indiana, but you also do virtual. Is that correct?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about your virtual service and how people can reach you.
The main way to reach me is through um, psychologytoday.com.
Okay. What's
I have
that website? What's the
It's
website?
psychologytoday.com.
Okay.
Um, and so you can look me up on there. You can search once you get on that website. Also, I joked with my kids last week and I told them, hey, I'm Googleable now. I kind
Okay.
of made that word up. You can Google me now.
Okay.
So just Google John Lewis, Indianapolis therapist, and I'll pop right up. Um, so yeah, the number, the website, and Googling me are some easy ways to get in touch with me. Yeah, and
Wow.
I encourage everyone to look inward. And if you feel like you need that help, reach out, whether it's to me or to someone else. It's real important that we make those connections and take advantage of that energy that humans share.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today, John W. Lewis Jr., MSW. He's a therapist, y'all.
Thanks
And
for
he
having me
is,
on.
oh, no, there's no question about it. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll look forward to seeing you real soon.
All right, man.
Have a good one. Thank you. All right. I hate to say it, but we have done due diligence here today. We have brought on someone who I consider to be a professional in this field. I've worked in social services for many years, and Mr. Lewis is definitely he's rare, and he's someone who, if you need help, please reach out to him. Again, always remember, you're not doing this alone. You're not by yourself. You have support. You have support. Don't ever feel alone. Until next time, you've been listening to Super Speak Sundays with James the Orator. We love you, and we'll see you soon. Peace.